Good afternoon. It's 1:30, so we'll start with the Traffic and Transportation Commission meeting for March 21st, 2011. Make the record known that I am John May as chair, and in voting, if I do vote, it'll be under Miller's designation up there. So we'll first of all ask for those in attendance. So, Ward 1?
Here, sir.
Ward 2?
Present.
Ward 3? Absent. 4?
Here, sir.
Ward 5? Ward 6?
Here, sir.
Ward 7?
Here.
Ward 8, that's myself, I'm here. And the at-large? Absent. We'll go to the first item on the agenda. It's called to order, but we've finished that. Approval of the minutes for February 21st, 2011. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Richard, second. By Ms. Jenkins. You've heard the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Or raise your hand, please. Raise your hand. Got it. Can you see? Let's put them up. Okay, item 3 on the agenda, the report of licensed taxi and wrecker services, which is a quarterly report, and that will be done at the April meeting. We do have an officer here today. Would you have an interim report or anything that you'd like to make a discussion on?
No, sir. I'm just here to observe today.
All right, thank you. So we move to item 4, the consent docket, which we have Jim Hooper, the Executive Director of Operations for Putnam City Schools. Is Jim here to support? Is there anyone in opposition to this consent item? Anyone at all? Please come forward. I'll look for a motion for approval then.
I'll make that motion, sir, to approve.
Second. Richard and Martin. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Got that vote? Thank you. Unanimous. Let's go to items 5A, which I understand that Major Shelton Riesler is not able to be with us today, but our own Dan Martin wanted to address the issue for him. So, Dan, I give you the floor.
We met with Major Riesler at the Cleveland Elementary School and discussed his petition. After much discussion, among the Cleveland neighborhood officers and board, we feel that the removal of any parking restrictions along Lynn Avenue would adversely affect the safety and the traffic flow, and that we found that there's also, it's being violated daily as it is, not by Major Riesler. At least not now. But and since his message to me last night, he's going to be gone for an extended period of time, and I really don't want to leave this hanging. So I have the president of the Cleveland Neighborhood Association, and she has circulated the assigned petition from the board of directors, and so do I need to make a motion to carry on?
Is the petition in support of Major Riesler?
No, it's to deny Any,
All right, maybe, I think what we'll do is have, if the president of the homeowners association is here, introduce that at this time. And that would be Jeannie
Rudy. Jeannie Rudy.
Rudy.
Yes.
All right, Jeannie?
Yes, I've given you information that we put together.
Before you get started,
I beg your pardon.
could you state your name and address?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm Jeannie Rudy, president of Cleveland Neighborhood Association. Is that all you need to know?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if I live at 2650 Northwest 25th, just a block from the school. We met with the school board, the Cleveland Elementary principal, and Mr. Riesler, and our security gentleman, Mark Kalkenshaw, and Dan and myself, and we met trying to resolve the issue. It was just unresolvable. We did agree to check further into it, and when we began to talk with the rest of our board of directors and residents, they were highly opposed to it. This is the only through street through our neighborhood, actually from 2 miles, because May Avenue is accessible, of course, through our neighborhood. No through streets off of May, but Villa, you can't access Villa at all in our neighborhood. So the next street west is clear down to Penn Avenue, which is way away from our neighborhood. I actually personally distributed the petition with officers and directors, spoke with all of them, and none of them were very highly opposed to it. A lot of them actually used that street to get out and in to work, and of course the Scott Lane with the transportation department that is in charge of the school buses. The school buses use that street to get out onto 23rd from our neighborhood. And so we just were not able to work anything out at all because it's just a real safety issue and a traffic flow. Because if they were allowed to park there, what would happen? Traffic would back up onto 23rd Street of people trying to turn. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of Ms. Rudy? Would you stay at the microphone for a minute? See if there's any questions of Ms. Rudy on this issue. Are there any other speakers regarding the issue, either positive or negative? For or against? All right. Thank you, Ms. Rudy.
Thank you.
I do want to hear from our own traffic department. Stuart Choi, would you give your summary of the situation?
Okay, you've got the comments before you. As noted earlier, the applicant in this particular case, Major Sheldon Ressler, did contact us last week asking that this item be deferred to the April 18th meeting. The staff comments are all in the report. At the time that he had submitted his application, he had full support from the residents in the immediately affected area, and at that time we recommended approval of the request. Action on this item will be at the discretion of the Commission.
Okay. Are there any other discussion issues coming from the Commission members?
I would like to state that I did contact the homeowner on southeast corner of Lynn and 23rd Street, and he was opposed to it. So out of the four homes, he was opposed to removing any of the no parking signs. So he did not sign the petition one way or the other, but I contacted him, and he was opposed to it. So out of the four homes that are in the corners of Lynn, of the one block that we're discussing, one of them, it's not in 100% agreement, but you can't tell that from the petition. All right. So I would like to make a motion for denial.
Is there any other discussion before we Okay, we're ready for a motion.
I mean, based on the research that we've done and the response that we've gotten from the 500 homes in the neighborhood, I make a motion for denial.
Motion made for denial. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. All those in favor of denial of the petition, raise your right hand. Thank you. We'll go on to item 5B, which is J&K Enterprises and Imports, doing business as Oklahoma Shuttle. Are there those people who want to speak both for and against? I have one person. Pardon me. We have three that want to speak regarding it. Let me hear first from Stuart Choi as a matter of the Traffic Commission's or Traffic Department's position.
Okay. Since the commission agenda was published, the applicants provided vehicle insurance information for five vehicles with information on their seating capacities and a comprehensive statewide service fee schedule. The applicant has brought in copies of their complete drug and alcohol testing policy with them as well, and that was distributed to the members right before the meeting started. With this information, their application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity is complete, and staff recommends approval of the application as submitted.
All right, you've heard the staff recommendation. I'd like to, first of all, ask any person that is here to support the application to come forward at this time, being the applicant, J&K Enterprises, who represents it as a positive support for this organization.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. My name
Can I
is
get your
Joff.
name and number and address also before you start?
My name is Jaffer Najam, 4345 Southwest 29th Street. I'm the CEO and the president of J&K Enterprises, DBA Thundercat, and now to introduce Oklahoma Shuttles to Oklahoma City. Based on the need and the growth of Oklahoma City, especially MAP 3, we find it imperative to introduce the only authentic and true shuttle company to Oklahoma City. If you would kindly look at the screen, here is the Oklahoma Shuttle. We plan to launch out with first 5 shuttles, and then periodically bring in, as needed, peak it out at 40 to 45 shuttles in Oklahoma City. These shuttles would basically be at to and from the airport. We do plan to let the taxis do their job. Their job is to taxi in Oklahoma City. The purpose of the shuttles are to shuttle to and from the airport only. The business model of the shuttle is very simple. They are flat rated and share a ride, maximum 2 fares. Subsidized rates, our shuttles wait for 6 minutes. Shuttles leave every 6 minutes. Shuttle is a very old concept. They're all over the nation, but they work with a different model. Oklahoma City works with a totally separate model, and that too because the market dictates it just that way. Our Will Rogers Airport is not a busy airport. We cannot wait for 20 minutes. We cannot have booths inside where people get the tickets and the shuttle's waiting for 20, 25 minutes, fills out the shuttle for 11 passengers, and like in Dallas, starts from Grapevine or Arlington and then goes all the way to downtown. So we limit 2 stops going in the same direction, and the company decides how far of a spread you want to give to the driver. The shuttles do go inter and intrastate. Shuttles are strictly to and from airport only. I emphasize that because we don't want the shuttles to run as a cheap taxi. That is not the purpose of a shuttle. That's how they are registered and licensed with the city. Again, I repeat, it's imperative to know shuttle is not a taxi at all. Taxis are taxis. They are metered. They are for that purpose, to take Mrs. Jones for grocery shopping, not a shuttle. Shuttle takes XYZ. They originate from the airport. Their destination is, whatever the destination is, they come back to the airport. Based on the need of Oklahoma City, with overdue time, like I mentioned, we would like to peak them at 30 to 40 shuttles. With the growth, Devon Building coming in, with more convention centers coming to Oklahoma City, and the prime example is end of March through the second week of April. We have prepaid legal coming in. Prepaid legal brings in about 12 to 15,000 people, about 7,600 rooms booked. You've got Pro Rodeo, brings in about 30,000 people, 9,600 rooms booked. Up to now, we've had, per se, one shuttle company, operates under 4 different names. It is imperative, we feel, there is a need with the growth to have another shuttle company. One company cannot fulfill the growing needs of Oklahoma City. And therefore, we would like to introduce, like you see the pictures, our shuttles are ready, and we are ready to go along and have the next shuttle company to be introduced as soon as day after tomorrow. All our rates, all our rate sheet, all the operational details have been provided to Mr. Chai. I think you all have the copies of it. If you all have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Okay.
Does the city set the rate? I mean, are the rates, or you set, the shuttle set the rates?
We set the rates.
Okay, so they're not regulated, the rates?
No, in Oklahoma City, the rates are not regulated, neither for the taxis nor for within the industry. Oklahoma City is not a regulated market, it's a free enterprise.
Okay.
Sir, I have 2. The first one is the rates that you have, are those close to a regular taxi rate for the distance that's being traveled? If I was to call a regular taxi to pick me up at home and take me to the airport compared to your shuttle picking me up, is it pretty close? Or?
No, sir. They are very, very different. They are actually very less. And the reason for that is taxi is metered, and the taxi can only hold 1 passenger.
Okay.
Shuttles take 2 passengers. So let's say if you come at the airport and you're going to downtown, it's a share ride. Taxi will charge somewhere around $26, $27 to downtown. But since you're sharing a ride in a shuttle, you'll be taken to the downtown for $16.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because you will have another passenger probably on the same route to be dropped either in downtown or further up in the same direction. So it'll be unreasonable to charge you $27 and then $20. So with a subsidized rate, it is fair enough and reasonable to compensate for the compensation for the driver, who is, again, an independent contractor. And so it creates a win-win situation. You're not charged too much. It's a less charge. And again, it's a matter of choice. The only difference is in a taxi, it's get in and go. In a shuttle, it's posted on our shuttles on the inside window right where you're sitting.
On the time
That shuttle leaves every 6 minutes.
And if there's no fare at that time?
If there's, after 5 minutes, if there's no fare, driver leaves. It's just his luck that you're in
And he
that.
just swings around and gets back in line kind of thing?
Yeah, then he leaves, drops you at the airport, at the downtown, and he comes back.
So even if there's nobody in the van, they'll still leave?
No, he waits there till he loads.
Okay, so if there's nobody at the 6-minute time, he waits?
Yes,
Okay,
that's just the procedure at the airport.
Right.
Taxis are lined, they have one line.
Right.
Airport, the shuttles have one other section where they line up. So once the shuttle is loaded, the driver has 5 minutes.
Okay. But
To
if there's
wait.
no load for an hour,
He just sits and waits. That's just his luck. Sometimes the business is slow, sometimes it's busy. But as far as the model goes, once the passenger is in, he only has 5 minutes
To pick up a second one.
to pick up the second one, going in the same direction.
Right.
Let me make it very clear. He cannot load in Edmond, and then a Norman comes in. He cannot take that. It has to be within the same direction. Certain parameters are there. Certain policies and procedures are there. So it's not like he can take 2 passengers and just give them a scenic route of Oklahoma City. And the passengers just flew in from New York City, and now he's enjoying the ride in a Honda Odyssey for two more hours. Would like to take care of the customers and give them a
So then the second question I had, and you actually touched on it, the wait in line for a taxi stand is different than the wait in line for a shuttle stand out there?
Yes, sir.
Now, is it like that here in the city or anywhere else? Will there be any of these shuttles?
Throughout the nation, sir.
I'm sorry?
Throughout the nation, taxis are considered.
No, I'm sorry, here in the city?
Yes.
Will there be shuttles waiting at places for
No.
rides?
No.
They only wait
The
out there?
shuttle business is only, like I mentioned, to and from airport. So basically, so to speak, the office of a shuttle is the airport. They only have one stand. That is the airport. They don't have city stands.
So if they get a ride into the city, and then there's a phone call, somebody wants to get picked up at a hotel.
They go to the hotel, they pick it up, but their destination always is the airport.
Okay.
And they clear at the airport, they make a loop, there's a line at the airport, they're there. If there's a call-off, if they have to be sent, let's say, to your house,
Right.
they originate from the airport. That's where they're sent from. They go pick you up from your house. They come back to the airport.
Okay.
So if there's a call that Mrs. Jones needs to be picked up from her house and she needs to go to Walgreens, shuttles do not do that.
Okay.
Under any name, under any pretense that it's a charter. No, this driver cannot do charter. Charter is 15 passenger or more capacity. For that, the driver needs a CDL license.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Are
sir.
there any other questions of Mr. Najan? Any other questions by the commission members? Okay, we thank you, and we'll have the second person to speak in favor of this. Is it Khalid?
Joffer touched on every point, so.
Okay. Then we'll move to the only person who signed up to be in opposition to this would be Kelly Work. Kelly, will you come forward, please? Give your name and address, Kelly.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kelly Work, and I'm an attorney representing 4 companies that are appearing in opposition to this application. My address is 105 North Hudson, Suite 304, Oklahoma City 73102. And I'm here representing Airport Express, Inc., Express Shuttle, Inc., Airport Shuttle, Inc., and Metro Express, Inc. Each of those 4 companies are operating in the airport shuttle business, providing service at Will Rogers World Airport. Our reason for appearing today is, with respect to this application, is that the application is incomplete and unclear, and there is additional information we believe that is required in order for the commission and the city to clearly understand the nature of the service that this applicant is providing, and also to be clear that the applicant can and will meet the requirements under both the Oklahoma City ordinances with respect to carrying passengers for hire and under the Oklahoma Corporation Commission regulations for motor carriers, particularly motor carriers carrying passengers for hire. I do have a couple of exhibits that I'd like to provide to you that I will make reference to. The first is a copy of your new ordinance, which has some very specific requirements relating to what the application for this certificate must contain and the criteria that the commission is to consider when making a decision as to whether or not to approve or deny an application. And a second is one of the sets of regulations from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission that sets out certain requirements relating to insurance for vehicles that are carrying passengers for hire. So if I could, I'd like to ask you to pass these around. I believe each of you have been provided with copies of the application that was submitted by the applicant. They were attached to the report from the staff. And I'd like to direct your attention in the copy of the ordinance that has been provided to the section 5624, which is on page 6. There in the upper left-hand corner, the page numbers appear. There, the criteria under your ordinance adopted, as I understand it, just in August of last year, the revised ordinance. And there it sets forth the 5 criteria that are to be considered by the Commission in determining whether or not to approve a certificate of convenience and necessity, as is before you today. And I'd like to direct your attention first to the last of those, and the last of those includes, there's a reference to the drug testing policy, but then also there is the requirement that the applicant must provide a completed application containing the information requested in section 5623. And then if you'll turn back then to section 5623, there are a number of the items that are listed as required to be submitted that have not been provided by this applicant that we feel are necessary in order for the Commission to make a determination on the appropriateness of this application. The first that I will refer to is paragraph C under section 5623, lists the number of motor vehicles for hire and for which a certificate is requested or desired, and then it goes on to say, and the manufacturer's rated seating capacity of each vehicle. And the application as presented does not include that information with respect to the manufacturer's rated seating capacity for each vehicle. Now, the reason why that becomes significant is there are differing insurance requirements specified by the Oklahoma Corporation Commission based on the seating capacity of the vehicles. So it becomes important. The more seating capacity, if it's over a certain benchmark, the Oklahoma Corporation Commission has a higher insurance capacity, has a higher insurance requirement that is required to be maintained for each of those vehicles. This application does not indicate the seating capacity of the vehicles that are being requested for this permit. The application also is to indicate the type and extent, this is in paragraph F, describe the type and extent of service to be rendered, and it gives examples, for example, airport shuttle, medical service van, taxi cab, limousine, party bus, etc. Now, in his remarks today, Mr. Najam has indicated that the shuttle service is proposed to provide service to and from the airport, but the airport is nowhere mentioned in the application that has been provided and submitted to the staff. The description of the service simply states it's a flat rate shuttle vehicle for hire. So it's a little unclear, and it certainly is not indicated in the application that the service that is proposed or that would be covered by this application would be limited to shuttle service to and from the airport. The next requirement under section 5623 is that the applicant is required to provide a copy of the applicant's drug and alcohol testing policies. And of course, that is important because we have other provisions of the ordinance that preclude any person from operating a vehicle for hire under a license permitted under this ordinance that has tested positive for drug and alcohol use. So that it's important that the applicant the holder of a certificate of necessity and convenience have a drug testing policy that complies with the terms of the ordinance and also complies with the provisions of state law dealing with drug and alcohol testing. There was a drug and alcohol testing policy that was provided with the application, and it is deficient in several of the categories that are required to be addressed under the city's ordinance. And those items are that the drug testing policy must specify the testing methods and collection procedures to be used. That's in paragraph number G5 of section 5623. It must specify what the rights of the employee and or independent contractor are to explain in confidence the test results. In paragraph 8, the rights of the employee or independent contractor to obtain all information and records relating to that person's testing. And then in paragraph 11 of section 5623G, the drug testing policy must specify the available appeal procedures, remedies, and sanctions. Under Oklahoma law, if you don't have these required provisions in your drug testing policy, you are prevented from taking some kind of sanction against an employee or independent contractor based on that policy. And so there is a reason why these specific requirements are set out under the ordinance to be included under a drug testing policy. If you don't have those requirements spelled out, then you can't legitimately require your independent contractors or employees to take drug tests and then impose sanctions against them if they test positive. They have to be given an opportunity, for example, to explain a positive drug test result. All of those provisions have to be included in a comprehensive drug testing policy. Those provisions that I mentioned are not included in the drug testing policy that is provided with this application. Now, the second document that I provided to you deals with the insurance requirements from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. Now, one of the criteria that the Commission is charged with determining is whether or not the applicant has the ability to comply with the requirements of the article. And of course, one of the requirements of the article under the ordinance is that the applicant must have a license from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission that's specified at an earlier section in section 56-3 of the ordinance. There must be in force and effect a certificate of convenience and necessity and permit from the Corporation Commission of the State of Oklahoma. So in order to be eligible to hold a certificate from the City of Oklahoma City, you have to have the license from the Corporation Commission. Well, the Corporation Commission has those insurance requirements that set out one level of insurance that is required for vehicles that carry fewer than 7 passengers. That insurance requirement is $100,000 of coverage. If it is a vehicle that has the capacity to carry 7 to 15 passengers, there is a $1 million insurance requirement that is required to be demonstrated and to be met. Now, with this particular application, the applicant has included with the materials a license from the Corporation Commission for taxi cabs. It has included a license that authorizes them to operate for taxi cab service utilizing vehicles having a seating capacity of less than 7 passengers. That's what's been submitted with this application. If their intention is to operate a shuttle service with vehicles that have 7 or more passenger capacity, and incidentally, the vehicles that they have provided certificates of title to, from our determination, would be vehicles that would have a capacity of 7 or more passengers. they must obtain from the Corporation Commission a license for vehicles from 7 to 15 passengers, not for vehicles from under 7. So they're going to have to demonstrate to the Corporation Commission and satisfy them that they've got insurance in the amount of $1 million for any vehicle that has 7 passengers or more, up to 15. What they've submitted with this application is a certificate of insurance, or excuse me, a license from the Corporation Commission for taxi cabs, which would be for vehicles less than 7. And of course, the Corporation Commission, the statutes that give the Corporation Commission the authority to regulate motor vehicles carrying passengers for hire, are all about making sure that there is adequate insurance to cover the traveling public if there are injuries that are suffered in an accident. So those requirements are significant. This application has not demonstrated, we believe, that they, first of all, it's not clear the type of vehicles because they've not given that information with the application as to whether or not these are vehicles that would have a capacity of less than 7 passengers. The implication, based on the license that they've attached to the application, is that they are going to be using vehicles that have a capacity of less than 7. But this certificate would authorize them to have a shuttle service to and from the airport that presumably is going to be a van that, at least that's what's depicted in, they have a photograph describing their, or showing their insignia, and it's a vehicle just from the photograph that would carry more than 7 passengers, or would have that capacity to carry more than 7 passengers. Let me address one other issues relating to the criteria that this commission is to consider when reviewing an application for convenience and necessity. The Paragraph A, as I mentioned earlier, deals with the ability of the applicant to comply with the requirements of this article. Now, this commission has in the past required applicants to submit documentation demonstrating that they have the financial stability to be able to operate and to be able to operate safely in a manner that will provide the service as they've indicated they will provide, and that information has been required to be submitted as a part of the application. Our contention to you is that that should continue to be required under this Paragraph A of the criteria as they exist today, in order for the commission to make a determination as to a particular applicant's ability to serve the traveling public in a responsible and economically stable manner. There's been not any information that's been provided with this application that demonstrates this applicant's ability to be financially stable, to not pose a problem for the airport or for the traveling public down the road. Our belief is that the application has not satisfied the requirements as specified under the ordinance, is not complete, and therefore does not meet the criteria as set out under Section 5624. I'll conclude my remarks. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, I'm just going to mention, I gave you more than the 5 minutes usually allotted because the fact that I wanted to hear all of your concerns. And with that, are there any commission members that have questions of Mr. Work at this time? Any questions at all? All right, I would ask our counsel as to whether or not, with the supplemental information that was provided, has the requirements of 5624 been met by the applicant?
Yes, we've received supplemental information indicating the seating capacity of the vehicles that they intend to operate, and we also received supplemental information regarding their drug and alcohol policy that that fulfills the deficiencies that were just pointed out. So, yes, I believe that the application does meet all of the ordinance requirements.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, thank you, Mr. Work.
Yes,
Are
thank
there any
you.
other folks that would like to speak in opposition to this proposal at this time? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I just make an inquiry at the appropriate time? Could we be provided copies of that supplemental material? I don't think we have had an opportunity to review that.
Direct Mr. Jai to provide that for you.
Thank you.
And you can get that and take that with you before you leave today.
Thank you.
No other, any discussion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to, in the supplemental information that was actually given to us, it says that there is a 7-passenger GMC Ford big van. And in reviewing the information that was brought to our attention, it says anything 7 or more that's implied there between 4A and 4B on the state insurance information would require that $1 million insurance. So one of their vehicles or several other vehicles could be a 7-passenger, which would have to bump it up to the $1 million. So taking that information and then the insurance information that was given, if I read this correctly, it's a $300,000 limit on their policy. Is that correct?
That's the way I read it.
So then they would have to have a $1 million policy because they have a 7-passenger vehicle. Is that?
But according to our ordinances, right now, they're not required to provide the required insurance verification until they go to have their vehicles inspected. At this point, they do not have to provide that. Once they are provided with the certificate, and then they have to go to the OCC and get their license and provide their insurance.
Okay.
And then when they go to have their vehicles inspected, then they'll provide all that information to the vehicle for hire inspector.
Okay, so
at this point in the application process, the insurance verification is not required.
okay, so it's clear to the applicant that you need a $1 million, and that's clear. Okay, all right, that's fine.
Any other discussion?
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Do we have a motion? Second time, do we have a motion?
Well, sir, if it's okay to ask one more thing.
Okay, you got some more discussion?
Yeah, just prior to making a motion. The one question from the second person that was speaking about this being an airport shuttle not in the application. Is that cleared up in any of the supplemental information?
I think if you look at the totality of the application, you can, it's clear that he's intending to operate an airport shuttle. All of the fares that we've been provided are, they say they're fares from and to the airport.
Right, that's the one I saw.
And the picture at the end also says that it's for providing transportation to and from the airport. So I think if you look at all of the information provided together, that it's
Right,
clear.
this one supplemental page, it says service from airport and then service to airport. And the fees are associated right there. So that takes care of that one question. We've clarified the insurance question that to go get certified from here, they have to they have to show the $1 million to the Oklahoma
Corporation
Corporation
and then
Commission.
they will get their license, and they'll have to provide that to the city's vehicle for hire inspector.
Right, and then you see it all and you certify it. Pointed to our copy there. Is that right? Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
And along with that schedule is a charter service, and there wasn't much discussion that I heard regarding the charter service. So I'd like to call Mr. Najam back up and to discuss what that charter service was all about so that we know specifically what is entailed in this application. Can you tell us about specifically the charter service?
As of this point, probably for the first business fiscal quarter, there is no charter service within our company that will be applicable over here. Charter service is done with passenger capacity of 15 or more. For that, you require drivers, like I mentioned earlier, with a CDL license. Charter service is not taken by the word of definition charter that we would, although, with due respect, our competition has been for a number of years under the pretense of charter, using their normal shuttle vans as charter. Charter is, within the logistics and transport industry, is an entity that has defined parameters. You cannot have a van sent to Skirvin to take to Coca-Cola Arena and say it's a charter. It's taxing.
Okay, relative to this
Relative to
application,
Oklahoma Shuttle,
what does
J&K
charter
Enterprises.
service mean?
Charter,
Relative to this application, what does charter service mean?
we are not doing charter service. We are strictly
So we
doing,
can strike that from the application?
yes, there is no charter. At the bottom where it says charter service, that is done with 15 down the road after first quarter, when 15 passenger buses, 15 capacity passenger buses are taken. When contracts from, let's say, Devon or Chesapeake are acquired by the company, then that or FAA is taken. When we have the capacity of 15, a group of 15, then that bus is sent on a charter with a CDL driver.
So would you approve removing that from this application?
Absolutely. If it is mentioned by one of our team that what the fair price is, that is just being proactive, putting the prices in so that anything, whether we're sitting day by day, hour by hour, getting the policies, procedures of the company put in place because one other entity within the company is being launched. I think if charter is mentioned, it's only mentioned at one place at the bottom on a price rate, I believe. Is that the only place? But nowhere else, because with the vehicles that we have, which are the same, mind you, let me add, these are the same vehicles that Airport Express uses. The capacity is the same. As far as this.
We have, I just want to make sure my
yeah,
question is
there is no
referencing the
charter service. There's only shuttle, and all our shuttles specifically say, right outside, it's posted this big, to and from the airport.
Scratch that. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, so we've got an application here for charter service to and
Shuttle
to the
service.
airport and from the airport.
Shuttle service.
So if you got an endpoint analysis, the charter service must either start at the airport and end someplace else, or start
Shuttle
someplace
service.
else and end at the airport.
Shuttle service.
And that's the scope of this application as a shuttle service. There is no charter service. Do we have a motion?
So I'd like to make a motion to accept item 5B as modified with seating capacity paperwork given to us, the certificate of liability insurance given to us, strike in the charter fare that was on there.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. But if you'll, again, raise your right hand for those in favor. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of those that participated for their thoroughness in which they conducted the information presented. Okay, we'll get on then to item 5C, Castle LLC, 3316 South May Avenue, Oklahoma City, doing business as Castle Cab in all wards. Consider an application from Castle Cab for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 50 vehicles in taxi service. We have we have two that want to address this. I'm going to refer it first to Stuart Choi as the traffic department head to give us a summary.
Okay. You can see that the application by Castle LLC for a certificate of public convenience and necessity is substantially complete, and staff recommends approval of the application as submitted.
Okay, we have, can you give me your name and address, sir?
My name is Tony Sampson. I'm at 3616 South May. I'm the CEO of Castle Cab.
Can I get your name once again?
Tony Sampson.
Have you filled out one of these?
Yes, sir.
Are you under the name Castle Taxi?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's give this back to you so you can put your name on there. Just a little housekeeping, but it is, Castle Taxi is an entity. You're the one presenting the information. We need your name and your address. And I'm assuming you're speaking in favor of the Castle Cab taxi application.
Yes, sir.
All right. You want to proceed?
I've been in cab service for the last 8 years. I've also worked with A1 Taxi, and I've also worked with Yellow Cab. I have a very clear understanding of the operation, how it works, and what it needs to do, and how it needs to move forward. I've been paid very nice high-end luxury cars. I think everybody should be able to ride in a taxi cab at a limo rate, taxi rate. They all should be treated the same, whether you're in a limo or you're a taxi, either way. It's just a different way of looking at it. It's all we're doing. I also have pictures here of the car, the design that it will look like once it is all put into play.
Okay. I'll give it to the... Anything else you have to provide us as information?
No, sir.
Any other verbal comments?
No, sir.
Questions of Mr. Sampson, Tony Sampson? Yes.
As a taxi service, you know it's a 24-hour operation 7 days a week.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And you know it's a radio cab dispatch?
Yes, sir.
Phone call goes into a central place?
Yes, sir.
A vehicle is available, it'll be dispatched and gone?
Yes,
Even
sir.
if it's on the other side of town?
Yes, sir.
Just to make sure that's clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a second person to talk with us on this, Roger Andrews. If you step aside, Mr. Sampson, and let Roger come forward. Roger, give you your name and address.
Roger Andrews with Yellow Cab, 107 Northwest 14th, Oklahoma City, 73103. As far as the application's concerned, I didn't see a tax ID number, and I thought there had to be a financial statement. No. Of course, I guess their OCC authority will come on later. My main issue right now is that, and I spoke with the airport director 3 times last week, we have some public safety issues with the parking out there at the airport. And what we're going to see going forward is people coming up wanting 5 cab permits so they can sit at the airport. And they've run out of parking now. And the airport director was going to make some changes in the parking, but then we've got another cab company that's going to be out there. And we're just running out of room, and he's concerned about the, like say, the public safety issues of the parking, more on the queue than on the money line. But that's our main issue, is that we only keep approximately 15% of our fleet has airport stickers that work the airport, where a small company is going to have everybody out there. And so the airport's been flooded many times the way the parking is now. When somebody comes out to get in a cab, and I'm talking about people, clients, customers, people that do business with us, there's not a yellow cab there because we've been squeezed out. Yet we get calls at all hours of the day and night to go pick up people and take them 6 blocks to the grocery store or to the laundromat. So we're not really getting the gravy of the airport anymore, which allows you to be stable so you can take these less profitable rides. And if this were the only company that's going to make this application, and it would probably be a moot point, but we're going to see one after the other now. And I just don't know. I think we need to address the airport parking before we continue forward on anything else.
Okay, any other comments Roger, from the point of view of, you talk about airport, and that is a separate entity from Oklahoma City.
Right.
So they run their operations separate from us. We don't have, if anything, very little control over what happens at the airport.
Well, Oklahoma City is a very spread out city, and we're out there 24/7, 365 days a year. It's expensive to man that type of service, and we go get people that other people don't want to get. And I'm not clear about the rates on this cab company, what they want to operate at, but when somebody comes in with a higher rate than historically is being charged in this area, you wonder, did they really want to transport disabled, elderly, people on fixed incomes, poor people, or they just want to scoop the gravy out at the airport? And until we can get somebody that is willing to do that, compete on a level surface, it just makes it very difficult for us.
Mm-hmm. Any questions of Roger? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the committee members?
I'd just like to go along with what you said. We have no control over what goes on at the airport. We don't have no control how many licenses they issue, how many they allow to queue, how it all operates. That's all there. All they require is they have an Oklahoma City license.
Right.
So that one issue. And the second thing on the fare is, I think we've talked about the fare over the last 2 years, and we've decided to let the taxi companies and what's out there drive the fare rate, not the city drive the fare rate. So if somebody wants to go in with a higher rate, that's been talked about before. That's not our call, that we did not choose to accept that as a challenge on our part to go ahead and regulate fees. So I just want to throw that out to refresh some of the thoughts that we've had on taxi service.
Yeah, I think we served on the same committee, and the end result was we can't deal with fares. We can encourage, the best fares possible, also reliability of the taxi cab company and the cabs, and also cleanliness of the cabs. We've encouraged all of that, but we don't have oversight from the point of view of telling them what to do or how to do it. We do have oversight from the point of view of complaints coming in.
But we've also chosen not to do that,
right.
That fare overview.
Exactly.
We could, if we decided that that's a problem, that our city residents are paying too much for a service, we could go down the road.
And that comes in as usually a complaint, and so and that's what we're going to be dealing with. If you have anybody else who wants to speak, even if fill out another sheet for this particular issue, you can do it later. We know who you are. We've got your number. Go ahead.
Would you like me to repeat my name and address?
Yes, name and address, please.
Jaffer Najm, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City. I'm speaking on behalf of Thunder Cab. I'm the owner of Thunder Cab. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Tony, Mr. Osborne. Welcome. I think it's very, very good that more companies are coming aboard. They're going to start with 5. I read their application. I think they filed in for 50 cabs. As far as what Mr. Andrews said, the airport is a different issue. No one squeezes anyone out. May that be the airport, may that be the city. Size of a company, it's a matter of perception. Thunder Cab now has 80 cabs. I think Yellow Cab's now got about 130. So I don't know how we're going to weigh this out. As far as taking the calls in the city and all companies go and take all the calls. May that be 6 blocks, 2 blocks, 3 blocks. We've got a GPS system. We've got database. We can print it all out, make copies, put it in Daily Oklahoma. 2-mile calls, 1.5-mile call. When the call comes in, that's a call. Cab is dispatched. So this story, this is an old, story. This dog just doesn't hunt anymore. That, the gravy goes here and this goes here. Thunder Cabs are all over the city, from Choctaw to Remington Park to Memorial to Cushins. You name a place and Thunder Cabs are there. As far as the rates, Rates go hand in hand with the tariff. Tariff is what companies charge the drivers. There are 4 cab companies now, 3 in operation, 4th one that will be coming. It's ironic that 3 cab companies have exactly the same fare. Yellow Cab is the only one that has a lower fare, which is about a few cents lower. But 3 cab companies have compatible tariff what they charge the drivers. And Yellow Cab has twice as much tariff. In essence, what they're asking is, we want to force the driver to charge less, earn less, but we will take more from the driver. From a free enterprise, private company. So I will have you pay me more, but I will force you to earn less.
You've got about 30 seconds to finish up.
So I don't know why this fair thing keeps on coming up. Let's put a little bit of rationale, a little bit of reasoning for the poor drivers outside too, who put in 14 hours a day in this industry. That's the nature of the beast, what they do. That's all I had to say.
Thank you.
I'll fill this out, sir.
All right. Any other questions, comments from the commission members? We have a motion.
Yes, I'll make a motion for 5C for approval.
We have a motion for approval of 5C. We have a second.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Those in favor, raise your right hand, please. Okay, we'll go on to item 5D, Randall Ince, Planning Department, for all wards. I'll refer to Stuart Troy from the point of view of what the Traffic Department has to say regarding this matter. Stuart?
All right, if you'll indulge me, just bear with me. Because this is a rather in-depth item, I want to go ahead and read a good chunk of the staff report, and this will be for the benefit of the people in the audience. Planning Department is proposing the accompanying draft ordinance, the primary purpose of which is to amend the definition of a bicycle route and amend the legal rights for all bicycle riders on Oklahoma City roadways designated as bicycle routes. This ordinance has its roots in the Oklahoma City Bicycle Transportation Plan, which the Traffic and Transportation Commission reviewed a draft version of at its regular meeting on March 17, 2008. The Planning Department sent a copy of the draft review for comment by the Commission as a part of the plan's adoption process before it went on to the Oklahoma City Council. The draft ordinance amends Section 32(1)(6) by redefining a city street identified as a bicycle route as being any roadway so designated and signed which allows a bicycle operator to use the full lane of traffic, notwithstanding the traffic lane's continued use by other vehicles. On roadways consisting of 2 or more lanes in the same direction of travel, the bicycle route shall be the outside or furthest right-hand through traffic lane only. The Traffic and Transportation Commission is hereby authorized to designate bicycle routes in accordance with this article and the Oklahoma City Bicycle Transportation Plan, or as may hereafter be amended. And the share the road sign does not indicate a designated bicycle route. So you see that 32(1)(6) and 32(479)(a)(4) both identify that part of the roadway designated as a bicycle route on which a bicycle operator may use a full lane as being as described in the previous section. I won't reread that particular definition. When reviewed in 2008, the draft version of the Oklahoma City Bicycle Transportation Plan called for the initial signing of 223 miles of roadways as bicycle routes. Over the course of 2 implementation phases, the plan envisioned a total of 525 miles of streets to be signed as bicycle routes. In 2008, the intent of the bicycle route signing in the Bicycle Transportation Plan was to heighten driver awareness of the presence of bicycles on public city streets with the understanding that the roadways were shared transportation facilities. The intent of the plan to identify these streets as shared roadways was addressed in Sections 7.1 and 7.2 of the plan. The draft ordinance presented today also amends Section 32(491), which addresses a motor vehicle operator's responsibility in overtaking or passing a bicycle on the road. As proposed, the ordinance will add 2 new subsections, Subsection B will require that motor vehicle operators that encounter bicyclists riding appropriately on a signed bicycle route to change lanes to overtake the bicycle, as opposed to passing the cyclist in accordance with the state law, which reads that a person driving a motor vehicle shall exercise due care by leaving a safe distance between the motor vehicle and the bicycle of not less than 3 feet until the motor vehicle is safely past the overtaken bicycle. Subsection C clarifies that passing a cyclist on a signed bicycle route in an area where passing a cyclist or any other vehicle would result in the motor vehicle operator having to cross a roadway center line in an area where passing is prohibited is not allowed. So proposed subsection C of 32-491 states that if attempting to overtake and pass a bicycle in accordance with this section, a person driving a motor vehicle shall continue to comply with all traffic control devices and pavement markings which prohibit lane changes. No passing conditions occur regularly on 2-lane minor and rural arterial roadways throughout the city. This aspect of motor vehicle operation regulation with respect to a bicycle rider's ability to utilize a full traffic lane was not contemplated in the 2008 Oklahoma City Bicycle Transportation Plan. As noted earlier, Mr. Entz from the Planning Department is here to discuss the item. You've seen quite a bit of text in the recommendations portion of this particular report. Probably the most substantial change that you're going to be considering is proposed by the draft ordinance is included in 32-491, which allows a cyclist to use a full traffic lane on streets designated as bicycle routes and signed accordingly. There are several types of bicycle warning and regulatory signs included in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and in order for a bicycle route to be signed as one where a cyclist may use a full lane, it would need to be signed with a combination of D11-1 signs, which are the bike route signs, and the supplemental R4-11 signs, which are a symbolic sign indicating that a bicycle may use a full lane. As noted earlier, the Traffic and Transportation Commission will be tasked with responsibility of designating those streets where cyclists may use a full lane, where that provision of this ordinance will be enforced. With that, we'll turn it over to Randy Entz, who's got a presentation for you, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Randy.
Thank you. I'm Randy Entz, Transportation Planner with the Planning Department. Today I'll go over a brief background on the bicycle plan, a brief overview of the ordinance, which Stuart just covered in great detail, and then I'll talk about how it will allow us to mark the routes from here on out, and then why it's important for us to mark them in such a manner. A little history on how we got here. In the Traffic Commission recommended adoption by the Planning Commission of the bicycle plan in March of 2008, almost 3 years ago. Planning Commission did indeed adopt it as an amendment to the comp plan in April, and City Council received the plan later on that month. The plan had many purposes. Briefly stated, it creates a better environment for people driving bicycles through a network of safe bikeways and through continued improvements of biking conditions and identifying the most desirable routes. The plan was put together by a process of public input from cyclists, residents, and regional government staff identifying the routes, and then city staff scored those routes based on 28 suitability measures, and the routes scoring the best were included in Phase 1. Phase 1 is what you see here. It's roughly 220 miles of on-street bicycle routes. The funding for the implementation uses a combination of bond money and ODOT enhancement money. The enhancement money also includes an education component to inform the public about bicycling on the roadway and the proper interaction between cyclists and autos. Phase 2 was also included in the plan as a long-term vision of future routes. Those routes were not scored or funded and will need to be evaluated before anything happens with those. Now, the ordinance amendment includes the definition of the bike route, establishes how bike routes are approved. They have to be included in the plan and then approved by this body. It allows for a cyclist to use the full travel lane on the routes. It cleans up some of the old ordinance language, and it moves some language from other parts of the ordinance into one location. Now, Planning and Public Works recommended 2 types of signs to mark the routes to offer the greatest amount of safety. First one was the bike route guide sign. It informs cyclists and motor vehicles as to where the bike routes are located. It's an informational sign. The other sign was the bicycles may use full lane sign. It's used, according to MUTCD, for narrow lane applications. It allows cyclists to move to a safer position in the lane, off the curb. In conjunction with the change lanes to pass placard, it informs road users as to how they should interact. The bicycles may use full lane was included in the 2009 MUTCD after plan adoption. The new ordinance will allow these signs to be used. Now, as I said, it's used for narrow lanes. AASHTO defines a narrow lane as anything less than 14 feet wide, and how they come up with that is the car needs 8 feet of operating space, a bicycle needs 3 feet of operating space. There's a 3-foot need for passing. That gives you 14 feet. Oklahoma City typical lane width is 13 feet, so we are substandard lane width. And how it increases safety is it allows a person on a bicycle to use the lane to increase their personal safety. It allows them to make evasive maneuvers around hazards, such as potholes, without entering the traffic flow, as you see on the far left. As cars make right turns, it prevents the bicycle from being relegated to the blind spot of the turning car. It allows a person on the bike to travel in space where traffic is expected to be, increasing their visibility to other traffic. And it moves them out from behind other cars in the line of sight for oncoming traffic, making them less obscured from other traffic. Current practice is to teach cyclists to move over from the curb into the lane to promote better visibility. This ordinance change will allow this to happen on the bicycle routes, increasing the safety of users of those routes. With that, we are requesting the Commission recommend City Council approve the amendments to the ordinance, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? Clarification?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I remember back in '08, that was a long time ago, and I see here, it's on the second page of the information, it talks about the 3-foot distance between a bike and a motor vehicle. Mm-hmm. Did we talk about that 3 years ago, and the state was moving us to the 3-foot thing, or did we move away from the 3-foot thing? I thought we moved away from the 3-foot thing.
I'd have to go back. We'd have to go back and research when that state law was passed. I'm not sure if it was in place at the time that transportation. It was probably in place, but we'll verify that.
I just wanted to make sure on that I could have sworn that the state law was changing to say a safe distance in passing and was taking away the 3-foot requirement. So, so if you could research that just to make sure that this information is right. So what you're saying is there'll be 223 miles of roadway that'll be signed appropriately, that a bike will be able to go right down the middle of the lane and own that lane of traffic.
Yes.
And so all these roadways are 4-lane roads, or some will be single lane that they won't be able to pass the bike? Is that what we're saying?
Correct. The majority of arterials involved are 4-lane arterials. I believe there's 15 miles of rural arterials included that are 2-lane.
Okay.
Those will not be signed with, where there's a no passing zone, they will not have that change lanes to pass placard.
Okay.
Cyclists will still have the right to take the lane for personal safety. Hopefully common sense will prevail, and if they can't get over, they will, and people will get along.
So a car would just have to wait for the bike. On a marked road that's a single lane road, the bike can take the lane and the car would just have to wait.
Yes.
Okay, and you're saying that there's only 10 miles of that?
There's 15 miles of 2-lane rural arterials and minor arterial roads.
And the rest are all the other 2?
The 4-lane, there's some collector streets that are 2-lane, but they're much lower volume streets, through neighborhoods, things of that nature.
Okay, and then for the signage, so we're going to have all these signs out there now. Is this a common sign that people know about when they take a driving test, or are we going to have some good PR thing to let the world know that we're doing it?
That is part of the education part of the enhancement money I mentioned. There'll be that education program coming out to let people know what the signs mean and how to interact.
And that all happened before it all happens?
If timing goes right, it'll all happen about the same time. So as they come online, start to see them. It's all tied with ODOT money, so they hold the strings a lot on the timing there.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'd like to chime in.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Sorry. I just want, in the recommendations portion of the report, I'll just read a little bit more for you. Upon approval, okay, now, what the commission is doing today is reviewing the draft ordinance and sending a recommendation regarding your review comments on to this. We'll summarize these comments, return them to planning, and then they'll be presented to the city council. So upon approval of the proposed ordinance, after it's been considered by the council, the commission will need to adopt general guidelines to follow when evaluating requests for roadways identified in the 2008 bicycle transportation plan. So it's not that all the roads in there are automatically approved. They will all be subject to review by the commission. And so the commission may consider wanting to have it develop their own internal guidelines when reviewing these things, because you have to take into you might want to take into consideration things like lighting, posted speed limit, roadway widths, road conditions, and that sort of thing, because you have to consider that bicycling can potentially be a 24-hour activity, and there might be some locations where depending on terrain or road conditions may be more suitable for the use of the additional signing as a bike route where a cyclist can use a full lane, whereas maybe there are certain situations where maybe it may not be that safe because you might run into conditions where you don't have adequate decision sight distance, and you might encounter a bicycle unexpectedly. So those are some things that the commission's going to have to do, because any of the streets that after enactment of an ordinance, the ordinance is written so that the commission reviews all the streets that are being submitted for bicycle routes to be signed where a bicyclist may use a full lane.
So we're saying to City Council, these are our comments, which we're okay with this. We're okay with the 223 concept for miles and the concept you laid out, the concept for signage. It would go to City Council. They make it an approved thing that we'll have bike routes in the city, basically. Right? Is that what City Council will be approving?
Well, they will approve a framework where, in order for bicycle routes to be designated, they will come back. All those routes will come back individually for consideration through the commission. They may come in batches. I'm not sure how.
What is this, phase one? So probably it all come at one bunch.
Ideally, we'd take it as big a batch as we could, as you're comfortable seeing.
Okay, but the concern that you just read, and thanks for highlighting that, is we'll have to adopt general guidelines to follow, which we have none. We don't have any. You have some thoughts of what should be guidelines, but we don't have any, and they're not established.
We could provide those measures, those 28 measures we scored against.
Right.
You could pick from, choose, however you feel comfortable. I could give you.
So City Council will say, yep, we would like to have bike routes. And then it would come to us to establish the guidelines on how we do establish bike routes, how we mark them, where they are, all that, and approve them just like a taxi stand. We say, okay, that's a bike route, that's not a bike route, that is, off of some guideline.
I would think it'd be similar just to approving a no parking zone.
Yeah.
And this is being a bike route. But my concern is that if we're going to set the guidelines, we're going to have some input from Randall and others. But where I get into the biggest concern is that bicyclists usually are traveling at a slower rate of speed than those in the vehicle, and they're harder to see. So if you're into a 4-lane road and 2 lanes each way, and you had 2 bicyclists, can one be in each lane? And if that were the case, I wouldn't agree with that. I'd say, you have to, leave open 1 lane, and maybe that's what we would be discussing in establishing.
Well, and all those questions I would throw out to the whole traffic commission, that we'd have some sort of task force like we did with the taxi task force. 3 or 4 people get with each other, get with the experts, come up with some guidelines that we could all think about, and then we could say, okay, there it is, here it is, and off we go. And then I guess this would be included in some of the city laws, or where would we put all those guidelines and that kind of stuff?
I would think that the commission's own guidelines would just be a standing adopted policy, just for the members of the commission alone.
So not like with the taxi where it has its own section of laws. We would just have a piece of paper that we all kind of agreed would be okay.
Exactly.
Guidelines. Okay.
I think the key is that keeping roads safe for the people who are on them, and that we get in their movement, they get to where they want to be, in a safe fashion, irrespective of the type of vehicle they're in. And I refer to bicycle as a vehicle.
Just to be clear, we have these signs up all over town, so we have bicycle routes now.
We have a few of the green signs up.
Yeah.
Most of those are included in Phase 1. There were a few that were not. Some of the share the road signs were not included. Those will get refreshed with new signs and the new main use full-length signs.
And a large part of the kind of the housekeeping or cleanup that's proposed with this is so that a police officer knows how to, if there's something, they know what the rules are, whether it is a bicycle route versus not. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Great. Any other questions? So if we were to move ahead on this, it would be for a recommendation to the city council for designation of a bicycle routes in Oklahoma City. Any other questions? We have a motion.
I will move that we refer this or make the recommendation to council.
Okay, Mr. Witcher, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Martin. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. Passed unanimous. I should have said those opposed, but in all cases it's been unanimous, so we didn't need that. We're really a compatible group today. I don't think it's because I'm leading as far as, I think it's, yeah, sure. Okay, now we have a chance to hear from our illustrious municipal councilor, Jill Jackson, on item 5E. Jill? You want to sign one of these blue? No, I'm kidding.
This is ordinance amendment is just to.
Supposed to get Peter. Can I ask one question? Is Peter Kramer here? Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure housekeeping. Thank you. Go ahead, Jill.
Okay, this ordinance is just to remove the requirement for tow truck operators to obtain an attendant permit. The police department doesn't require those anymore, so we're just trying to remove that to bring it more into line with current practice.
So this has to do with attendant permits that the police used to grant, but they don't grant anymore.
They used to require tow truck operators to obtain these, but they don't anymore.
So if that's the case and they're not going to start granting them in the future, there's no need to have that as part of our provisions.
Right.
So it's a cleanup.
Exactly.
We have a motion to... Yes, go ahead and discuss.
Well, why did the city have this in law? Do we know 20 years ago or whatever, what the reason was?
I'm not for certain what the original reason was. There were several sections that talked about attendant permits, and they were all repealed in, I believe, 2007. And for some reason, this particular section wasn't repealed.
Oh, okay, so other sections got pulled in 07. This is the final section they talked about.
Right.
Well, let me ask one thing. Is there anything that regulates the wrecker service in the city? Now that there would be no attendant permits, except for the ones that we approve every year that work for the city, is there anything that monitors wrecker service? Because I would assume what this would have done is Johnny comes in and he wants to drive a wrecker, he would present some sort of training, insurance liability, something, and get a permit to operate. We are tasked with wrecker review, is that right? Is that part of our charter?
In this particular case, the wrecker services the commission reviews are those which will provide services for what we designate as zones 1 through 4, which are used on an on-call basis by the police department.
Correct.
The remainder of wrecker operations, I'm sure, are covered under city regulations as far as that goes. But as far as our codes are primarily focused in, or we probably spend the greater amount of detail discussing the operating requirements for wreckers that work with contracts with the city.
Right. So is there anything well, it's a multiple question, it appears. Does the city regulate wrecker service? And if it's yes, then is it the Traffic and Transportation Commission that regulates wrecker service? And if it is, are we doing our job?
The only, right, I would have to research and get back to you. I believe the Oklahoma Corporation Commission is the one that regulates tow trucks and wreckers.
Statewide.
Yeah, I mean, the only contact that we have with wreckers is the contracts that come through Traffic Commission every year.
Right. Yeah, because
other than that, there aren't.
So you're saying that the state, in their licensing, regulates the wrecker service, their training, their liability, their vehicle capability, vehicle safety, and we in the city don't do that, except for approving the 4 zones that do the on-call service for us?
I believe so.
Okay. As long as it's not our responsibility. So if you could just research and make sure it's not the Transportation Commission's responsibility. And I'm assuming, this is an assumption, years ago there probably was a feeling that the city was responsible and they deferred it to the city police to make sure they were legal.
I'll research and get back to you.
As long as somebody makes sure that they're legal, if we care. Okay.
Yeah, can we have a municipal counselor check that out and then report back at the next meeting in April?
Yes.
Okay. So let's just hold off on.
This is a housekeeping of the last part. I'm fine with it going.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it going if this is the last housekeeping part of a multiple piece that never got pulled. But I would like to have that research, and if we decide, hey, it is our concern and there is no longer anybody doing something, then that would be a whole different issue that we would take up.
Sure.
Okay.
So you make a recommendation then?
I would like to make a motion to accept our council recommendation as listed in this item.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Witcher. All those in favor, right hand up. Those opposed? One opposed. All right, we also have a report from Traffic Management Division. Any report that you'd like to make in general?
No, the only thing that we've got is our monthly report on yield signs, which are a few of which were approved through the administrative process. Other than that, we don't have any other additions.
Comments from citizens. If you have some citizens out there, like come forward and make a comment, here's your chance. All right, thank you for attending. We had good attendance today and lots of discussion. Let's go to each one of the traffic commissioners, and we're going to start with the lady this time. If that's all right, Jim, we'll just switch once in a while. And the reason we switched is because I'm usually at that end, the last one, so I said we'll just switch it around this time. So, Commissioner. Sure. Very good. And could I say that when anybody, let's put our speakers on, but the other issue is that when anybody votes against something, you don't have to make an explanation. You're voting your conscience. And so we all know that, okay? But I just want to make sure that you were aware of that, because since you're fairly new on the commission. Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. You've done a good job today, too, by the way. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Mr. Chai, I just have some concerns about parking on between 22nd and 23rd. And I guess it would be along Dewey Avenue. We have a new, very successful business, Big Truck Tacos. I don't know if anyone's been there. I highly recommend it. It's a great place. But it is just north of Wilson Elementary School. And parking becomes a real issue there sometimes of the day. And I think that I'm noticing that some people are actually parking in yards, on people's yards. And I am concerned that emergency vehicles could get through there if they had to, maybe fire trucks and stuff. It's becomes quite an issue. And I think even one block west, also between 22nd and 23rd, that's kind of south of the Plasma Center there on 23rd Street. I don't know if that's ever been evaluated, but some of the residents there have expressed concern to me.
Okay, is there a time of day when parking seems to be an issue out there?
I think school gets out at about 3, and even then, that's not the lunch hour particularly, but traffic, it can be really congested there sometimes in the day.
Okay.
So we'll get the police department to take a look at that periodically and see what's...
I'd really appreciate it. I think it'd be... Thanks.
Thank you. Walt? Dan?
I've experienced the traffic at the Plasma Center going to a luncheon, and it's solid all day long. I mean, they use it for their parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thank you. Jim?
Well, I'd like to think there was a renegade sign in the park, the city park across the street from my house that seemed out of place. I reported last month that to Stuart, and the sign is gone now. I assume it didn't walk off by itself. So.
I believe it had assistance.
You're not going to get by with a renegade sign?
It wasn't properly set into the ground. It just seemed out of place. Didn't seem like it made sense to be there.
80 mile an hour speed.
Yeah. So I photographed it, sent that on to Stuart, and he got it taken care of.
I wanted to say we had a real good participation from citizens and also from the commission members, so I appreciate you speaking up and talking and discussing the issues so we better understand them and then make an informed decision. Jill, anything on your part? Stuart?
No further comments.
Officer? Make a motion for adjournment. Done. Thank you all.